It's been a while since I made a video here. I took a step back to get into some other things, but I've been still doing things audio related, although I haven't documented them. One thing in particular, well, what this video is about in particular, you could say, is something that I planned on doing last year, but never got around to doing, mainly because I would have to build this thing right here, and I just didn't feel like doing it. Even though this doesn't look like anything too elaborate, it's just a piece of MDF with a hole in the bottom and a camera fastened at the top with a bolt and a wing nut. And the idea here is that the camera will record the display of the SPL meter that's down inside that hole. Hot melt glued and placed. Okay? So look, it took like 2 minutes to build this. So I don't know why I put it off. It's just one of those things, you know. You find excuses for not doing things. And that was the one here. I had to make this thing. Anyway, so I made it this morning, and then I came down and I executed the test that I wanted to do. And the idea behind the test is to go around the room with this thing here, measuring the SPL of the sound that's in the room at various locations. Now this meter is like it's a SPL meter, but it has an A and a C weighting. So I set it to C because what C does is it allows it to measure the intensity of bass, whereas A doesn't do that. It filters that out. So I started here at my listening position, and the tone that you're going to hear is at 40 hertz. And it's playing through my subwoofers, my infinite baffle subwoofers in the front wall. And you'll see how the intensity of that varies throughout the room as I move around it. Okay, so as you can see, quite a variation as I walked around the room. I started from my listening position here. I went all over. I even went up in front of the subwoofers in the front wall where the signal was obviously strongest. But, you know, you wouldn't think this. They're halfway down the room here, close to the floor. There was a very deep null where it got below 80 decibels. And in the back corner, behind the camera that was recording me walking around, it got strong again, up over 90 decibels. That's a 20 decibel difference between that back corner up there and the middle of the floor over here. And you might be saying, well, that's all very fascinating, John, but what was the point? Well, the point is to demonstrate that small rooms are not the same as big rooms. The things that you can do with bass in big rooms, as far as cancellation and other things that are possible in large venues, like big open spaces, are not possible in small rooms because you have that one overriding mechanism. Whenever you play bass inside a small room, it's dominated by room modes. And there's no getting around that. Like, I've got a lot of treatment here in my room, but still, it is affected by room modes. As you can see, me walking around, the response is different all over the place because of those room modes. That null that you saw on the floor is there because of room modes. This room is square. It's 14 by 14, which means that a 40 hertz tone is hitting that room mode almost perfectly. So you saw it in action. And when you have music or soundtracks or anything you're listening to that has bass in it, it's going to react with the room. And what they're doing together dominates everything else. It makes everything else insignificant. Another reason for me doing that demonstration was to try to show the difference between pressure and velocity of sound. Now, I said in another video, I'm pretty sure anyway, memory's not perfect, that sound pressure levels really should be called sound amplitude level, because the idea, well, the concept of pressure makes people think that the room is being pressurized, as in the air pressure in the room, the volumetric pressure of the air in the room is changing, when that's not changing at all. What's happening is that the room is being excited by sound amplitude, waves, okay? And walking around the room, you can see the effect of the sound amplitude level in various locations. Like in the back corner over there, it got above 90. Up at the front, right by the woofers, it got as strong as it is, could be anyway. And, you know, the null down there. But in the meantime, there's still sound there, and the sound is still moving. So what you have to look at is the room as far as SPL, or sound amplitude, goes, can vary, okay? But the velocity of the sound is fairly constant, as in it doesn't change. Because to get that null down on the floor that I showed there, sound is overlapping and it's interfering, but it's still moving. The sound, like the rate of travel for the sound, hasn't changed. The result of the sound as it passes over itself and overlaps and bounces all over is that amplitude that we saw, the variation in the amplitude that we saw. What people call pressure buildup. Like in the back corner over there, there's a pressure buildup. It's actually an amplitude buildup. The velocity of the sound that's in that corner isn't any different from the velocity of the sound where I'm sitting right here. The results of the velocity of the sound, that's where you get those amplitude variations, those pressure variations.